You know, we take this certain paradox for granted, like every single day. I think we all just accept without question that psychological stress manifests physically.
Oh, absolutely. It's just a given, right?
Right. Like you have a terrible month at work and your blood pressure spikes.
Hmm.
Or you go through this prolonged period of anxiety and your shoulder's not up, or maybe you develop an
Oh, you're
ulcer.
getting rash flares up. Yeah, we've all been there.
Exactly. It's universally understood that feeling bad creates this physical state of emergency in your biology.
Yeah.
But what I want to do today is kind of flip that assumption around.
Okay, I like where this is going.
Because if you're genuinely thriving, does your immune system physically stand down? Like, does finding meaning in your life actually measurably turn off those biological alarm bells?
It's a fascinating question.
Right. And that is the exact question we're unpacking today.
Yeah.
We're going on a deep dive into an incredibly rigorous piece of research. It's an 8-year longitudinal study of, I think it was 8,780 older adults.
Yeah, 8,780 from the English Longitudinal Study of Aging, or ELSA.
All right, LSA.
Yeah.
And you've been looking over this data with me. The depth of it is just wild.
It really is. I mean, it was conducted by researchers at University College London, and what stands out immediately to me is the methodology. Because, when we normally talk about the biology of happiness,
It gets kind of woo-woo.
exactly, it drifts into the abstract. Or it leans really heavily on subjective self-reporting, like rate your happiness on a scale of 1 to 10.
Which changes depending on if you've had coffee yet.
Right, exactly. But this research just completely ignores the abstract. It looks at hard, measurable, longitudinal changes in the blood over almost a decade.
Wow.
Yeah, they wanted to map the exact biological footprint of a life well lived to determine if, mental well-being is just a mood or if it functions as an objective, systemic anti-inflammatory state.
And to do that,
Mm.
I found this part so validating just on a human level.
Huh.
The study doesn't just lump all positive feelings into one big bucket labeled happiness.
No, they make a very clear distinction.
Yeah, they split well-being into two distinct categories. So there's hedonic well-being, and then there's eudaimonic well-being.
Right.
And hedonic is the one I think we're most familiar with in modern culture. It's largely about the pursuit of pleasure, avoiding pain, and just general life satisfaction.
Yeah, the researchers measured that using things like the CASP-15 pleasure scale
Okay.
and the Einer satisfaction with life scale. Basically, it's positive affect. It's enjoying the moment.
Which is great, obviously.
It's an important metric, sure.
Right.
But it's incomplete. Hedonic well-being is basically the immediate gratification side of the coin.
Right.
Eudaimonic well-being, on the other hand, which actually has its roots in Aristotelian philosophy.
Oh, going way back.
Way back. It's about flourishing. It's about fulfilling your human potential. So it involves the pursuit of meaning, purpose, self-realization, and autonomy.
Okay, so to put a real-world spin on this for a second, hedonic well-being is like the feeling you get from eating an incredible slice of pizza or, finally hitting the beach on a long-awaited vacation.
Right. It feels great in the moment.
It's amazing, but there are diminishing returns, right? Like by day 6 of that beach vacation, you're checking your work email and it starts to stress you out again.
Yeah, the novelty wears off.
Exactly. Whereas eudaimonic well-being is that deep and honestly sometimes totally exhausting satisfaction of, say, putting together IKEA furniture for a nursery.
That is exhausting.
Right. Or volunteering at a community garden in the hot sun. Or struggling for years to master a difficult craft. You might not be walking around with a massive smile on your face while you're up at 3 a.m. with a crying baby.
Definitely not smiling.
But you possess this profound anchoring sense of purpose.
That analogy is spot on, and that distinction is vital for this data because, the researchers did find that these two types of well-being share about half to 3/4 of their variance.
Meaning they overlap a lot.
Yeah, people who feel a profound sense of purpose often also experience daily pleasure. But because they stem from completely different theoretical and evolutionary backgrounds, the fundamental question of the study is how the body differentiates them.
Like, can my cells tell the difference?
Exactly. How does your immune system distinguish between the fleeting pleasure of a vacation and the deep purpose of raising a child?
Which brings us to the actual biomarkers they looked at. Because I noticed in the study, they didn't just run like a general inflammation panel. They zeroed in on 3 really specific neuroimmune biomarkers.
They did. White blood cell count, C-reactive protein, and fibrinogen.
Okay, so I know CRPC reactive protein is that classic systemic alarm bell produced by the liver. But grouping all 3 of these together, It seems to paint a very specific picture of the body's acute phase response, doesn't it?
It really does. They chose those three because together they essentially represent the front line and the systemic command center of the immune system.
Okay, break that down for me.
So, white blood cells are the foot soldiers. An elevated count means your immune system is actively fighting something or it's on high alert.
Makes sense?
Then C-reactive protein, like you mentioned, is this massive systemic flare sent up by the liver. It's a classic marker linked to a whole host of chronic conditions.
Like what, cardiovascular disease?
Yeah, cardiovascular disease, metabolic syndrome, you name it. And then the third one, fibrinogen, is an acute phase reactant protein that facilitates blood clotting.
Wait, clotting. Why would that go up?
Well, when your body is under stress, fibrinogen levels rise in anticipation of injury. It's preparing to stop you from bleeding out.
Wow. So high levels of WBC, CRP, and fibrinogen collectively indicate a body under siege. It's like a biological state of martial law.
That's a perfect way to describe it.
But, okay, here's where I have to play the skeptic for a minute.
Please do.
Because reading through the setup, I had this nagging thought. Isn't feeling physically good like having low inflammation just a side effect of not being clinically depressed?
That's a very fair question.
And furthermore, like, what if I am just genetically wired to be a bit of a cynic? You know, like my baseline personality is just a bit grumpier than my neighbors. Am I doomed to be inflamed for the rest of my life just because I'm not naturally bubbly?
See, that skepticism is exactly why observational studies on happiness have struggled to gain traction in hard science for decades.
Really?
Yeah. It is notoriously difficult to separate a person's baseline disposition from their actual health outcomes.
Right.
But the brilliance of this UCL study is their application of something called fixed effects modeling.
Okay, what is that?
They didn't just take a snapshot of a group of people and compare the happy ones to the unhappy ones. That's what most studies do.
That's flawed.
Right. Instead, they track the exact same individuals over 8 years. Fixed effects modeling compares you to you.
Oh, so it essentially creates a controlled experiment out of my own life timeline.
Exactly. It neutralizes all that background noise. Mathematically, it factors out your baseline genetics, your natural personality, your biological sex, your ethnicity, all of it.
So my baseline grumpiness doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter at all. The study is purely asking, when your personal level of well-being fluctuates from your own normal, what happens to your systemic inflammation?
That is so cool.
And, to your other point about depression, they also adjusted for time-bearing mental ill health. So they specifically tracked whether an individual was experiencing clinical depression during those 8 years.
So they separated it completely.
Yes, this allowed them to isolate the effect of positive well-being completely independent of the presence or absence of depression.
Meaning they proved that well-being isn't just the absence of illness. It is an active, independent physiological variable.
Absolutely.
And when they ran this fixed effects model across nearly 9,000 people, the way the body responded to the two different types of happiness was staggering.
It really was.
Let's look at the hedonic side first. When an individual experienced an increase in, like, pleasure and life satisfaction over those 8 years, what did the blood do?
So an increase in hedonic well-being only reliably lowered the white blood cell count.
Just the foot soldier.
Just the foot soldiers. And it's actually worth noting that when the researchers adjusted for covariates like smoking, sedentary behavior, and BMI, the association with general life satisfaction disappeared entirely.
Wait, really? It vanished.
Entirely. Only positive affect, like the active, immediate feeling of joy, maintain a reliable, albeit pretty small, association with lowered white blood cells. But it had absolutely no significant effect on CRP or fibrinogen.
So the fleeting joy calms the foot soldiers down temporarily, but it doesn't touch the systemic command center.
Nope, the liver keeps the martial law in effect.
Wow. But then we pivot to eudaimonic well-being, specifically the component of self-realization, like that deep feeling that your life has meaning, purpose, and opportunities for growth.
Yeah.
What happened there?
When an individual's sense of self-realization went up compared to their own baseline, the biological response was aggressive.
Aggressive how?
It suppressed all three markers. White blood cells, C-reactive protein, and fibrinogen all saw significant decreases.
All three?
All three. And crucially, this protective anti-inflammatory effect persisted even when the researchers aggressively adjusted for depression, chronic illness, smoking, sedentary behavior, and BMI.
So it wasn't just because they were exercising more or something.
Exactly. It proved to be a robust, independent physiological effect. The immune system is profoundly attuned to whether or not you are engaged in fulfilling your potential.
That is wild. I do want to parse out one nuance from the data, though, because the study also measured control autonomy as part of that eudaimonic umbrella, right?
Yes, feeling like you are the author of your own decisions.
Right. And initially, that seemed to lower all three markers as well. But there was a catch when they ran the adjustments, wasn't there?
There was. When they adjusted for time-varying health behaviors, things like whether the person started smoking or stopped exercising or gained weight during those 8 years, the association between control autonomy and lowered inflammation vanished.
So the implication there is what?
That feeling in control of your life lowers inflammation primarily because it motivates you to take better care of your physical body.
Ah, you feel empowered, so you finally go for a run.
Precisely.
Okay, so autonomy is behavioral, but self-realization, that deep sense of existential meaning, has a direct, protective biological effect that bypasses behavior altogether.
Yes.
It lowers your systemic inflammation even if your gym habits don't change one bit, which honestly brings me to the mechanics of this.
Yeah.
Because I really want to steer clear of making this sound like magical thinking.
Oh, it's not magic. It's endocrinology.
Right. We're talking about a philosophical concept physically instructing the liver to stop producing C-reactive protein.
Yeah.
What is the actual biological bridge between a thought about my life's purpose and my blood chemistry?
So the researchers dedicated a significant portion of their analysis to tracing these exact pathways, and it turns out it relies heavily on the behavior of adipose tissue.
Wait, fat tissue?
Fat tissue. A loss of meaning or a lack of eudaimonic well-being often precipitates these really subtle shifts in behavior and metabolism over time, which frequently leads to the accumulation of visceral fat.
Right.
Now, adipose tissue is not just passive biological storage. I think a lot of people assume it just sits there.
Yeah, just extra weight.
Right. But it's actually an incredibly active endocrine organ. When visceral fat accumulates, it begins to pump out pro-inflammatory cytokines, specifically one called interleukin-6 or IL-6.
Okay, I've always thought of visceral fat as like an overactive gossip. You know, it just sits there in the middle of your body, constantly churning out panic signals to everyone else.
That is a highly accurate way to visualize it, actually, because alongside IL-6, that adipose tissue releases a hormone called leptin into your circulation.
Leptin, okay.
And leptin acts as a major signaling molecule. It binds to receptors directly on your macrophages and your white blood cells. And when it binds to those immune cells, it upregulates their production of even more IL-6.
Oh, wow. So you end up with a compounding feedback loop of inflammatory signaling.
Exactly.
The gossip convinces the foot soldiers to start panicking, too.
And all of that IL-6 originating from both the fat tissue and the immune cells travels straight to the liver.
The command center.
Right. IL-6 is the specific chemical messenger that stimulates the liver to synthesize and release C-reactive protein and fibrinogen into the bloodstream, which plunges the entire body into a state of systemic inflammation.
Man. It is an elegant, if slightly terrifying cascade. Like, I lose my sense of purpose, my metabolism shifts slightly, the visceral fat acts up, releasing leptin and IL-6. The leptin agitates the white blood cells, which pump out more IL-6.
You've got it.
And then the liver gets flooded with these panic signals and just declares martial law, churning out CRP and fibrinogen. My whole body is literally biologically preparing for trauma just because I feel adrift in my life.
It really raises a fascinating evolutionary question, doesn't it?
Yeah, why would it do that?
Well, why would the body evolve to trigger an inflammatory cascade in response to a lack of purpose? Think about our ancestral environments. If you lost your social role or your sense of purpose within the tribe, you were at a much higher risk of isolation.
Oh, sure. You get cast out.
And isolation meant a drastically increased risk of predation, exposure to the elements, or untreated wounds. So from an evolutionary standpoint, the immune system preemptively ramping up inflammation and clotting factors like fibrinogen is a survival mechanism.
It's anticipating getting hurt.
Exactly. It is anticipating a physical injury because your social integration has fractured.
The body is literally preparing to bleed because it feels lonely.
It's profound, isn't it?
That makes so much sense. But it also makes me wonder about the DMI factor you mentioned earlier.
Okay.
If the entire cascade hinges on adipose tissue kicking off that IL-6 feedback loop, does this mean the anti-inflammatory power of purpose only works for people who are naturally leaner? Or what if you're overweight?
It's a great question, and the researchers anticipated that variable. They tested for moderation by BMI. While the inflammatory effect of low well-being was indeed amplified in individuals who are overweight or obese because, logically, they have more adipose tissue driving the cascade, the protective anti-inflammatory effect of self-realization was still clearly and independently present in individuals with a perfectly healthy BMI.
Wow. So the mind-body connection overrides the metabolic baseline.
Yes.
Even if you are perfectly lean, a loss of purpose still triggers that ancestral inflammatory response. And conversely, gaining a sense of self-realization still lowers your CRP no matter your weight.
Absolutely.
They also noted this effect works across different demographics, right?
Yeah.
Like it wasn't just isolated to a specific age group or gender.
No, it's a universally observed mechanism. The effect was slightly stronger in people over 65, which makes sense given that inflammation naturally increases with age.
Right, inflammatory.
Exactly, inflammaging. That higher baseline just gives the eudaimonic suppression more contrast. But the effect was still highly significant for those between 50 and 65.
Okay.
They did observe a slight moderation by sex. The anti-inflammatory effects of eudaimonic well-being were slightly more pronounced in men than in women.
Interesting.
Yeah, which actually echoes previous literature on depression and inflammation. Sometimes that shows a tighter physical linkage in male biology. But the overarching physiological law applied robustly to everyone in the cohort.
Incredible. So let's ground this in the reality of your daily life, because this data completely dismantles how modern culture approaches burnout.
Oh, completely.
Think about it. When you feel exhausted, when your stress levels are peaking, you just hit a wall, the multi-billion-dollar self-care industry almost exclusively prescribes hedonic fixes.
Oh, yeah. Treat yourself. Take a bubble bath.
Right. Have a glass of wine, binge a show, go on a weekend getaway. And we established earlier that positive affect does calm the white blood cells temporarily. So those things aren't totally useless.
No, they have a place.
But the science suggests that if you want to truly calm your biological alarm systems, a bubble bath is entirely insufficient.
It requires a massive paradigm shift in how we view recovery. True self-care, at least at a cellular level, often looks like doing something difficult.
Say more about that.
It might mean taking on a local leadership role or, learning a complex new skill that frustrates you initially, or engaging in a project that demands sustained, hard effort.
Because those are the things that build eudaimonia.
Precisely. Those activities cultivate eudaimonia. They might not yield the immediate, easy dopamine hit of a hedonic pleasure, but they are actively instructing your liver to power down the systemic inflammation.
It's the difference between just numbing the stress and actually resolving the existential root of it.
Exactly.
Like if your liver is pumping out CRP because you feel adrift in your life, a weekend resort vacation only masks the symptom for a few days. Engaging in something genuinely meaningful rewires the biological cascade from the top down.
It really does.
And I keep coming back to the fixed effects methodology of this study. Because it tracks with in-person variation, it proves that your past does not trap you.
I think that is perhaps the most empowering takeaway from all of this data. The study demonstrates that when your personal sense of self-realization increases from your own baseline, your inflammation drops.
Period.
Period. It does not matter if you spent the last decade feeling cynical or inflamed. The moment you begin to engage with a new sense of purpose, your immune system begins to recalculate.
Wow. Your immune system is actively eavesdropping on your sense of purpose.
It functions as a real-time microscopic tracking device for your life's meaning.
Which leaves us with a lingering, honestly, almost uncomfortable philosophical question to chew on as we wrap up this deep dive.
Yeah, it does.
We look around today and we see skyrocketing global rates of inflammatory and autoimmune conditions.
Yeah.
Chronic fatigue, metabolic syndromes, cardiovascular disease.
It's everywhere.
And the standard operating procedure is to blame our modern diets or environmental pollutants or just the sheer speed of the digital age.
Which are all factors, of course.
Sure they are. But if we take this 8-year dive into the blood of 9,000 people seriously, it forces us to look at the broader cultural landscape. Like, are the modern epidemics of chronic inflammatory diseases not just a failure of diet or environment, but partly a biological symptom of a society that has fundamentally lost its sense of eudaimonic meaning?
It's a heavy thought.
It's a really heavy thought, but it completely changes how we might want to structure our time tomorrow. And speaking of tomorrow, if thoughts alone have the power to structurally alter your blood chemistry, what happens when you physically move your body?
Oh, that's a whole other level.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Tomorrow we are pivoting to a completely different pillar. How exercise rewrites your DNA.
Epigenetics.
Epigenetics. The sheer power of movement to turn genes on and off. You're not going to want to miss it. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.